That was our job mainly, was the anti-submarine off the shores of Panama. Now, we did make a couple other little excursions. I remember one night, and I mean, it was in the dark of night. A submarine comes alongside of us. It's one of our subs, and what we did was take some high-ranking officer and put him on that submarine. How I remember is because I was in that dinghy rowing him over there. But that was, like a 007 excursion. It was really, really something. Another time, I remember it was a reported U.S. bomber went down somewhere south of us, and so we took off looking for him and ended up down by all the way down by the Galapagos Islands, but we never did find him. But the Goonie birds found us because our deck was awash with white. So that's another thing I remember. Another thing, evidently we took the ambassador from Costa Rica, from Panama up to Port Limon, Costa Rica. And while we were there, they all gave us, each side of the ship, port and starboard, 3 days leave to go up to San Jose. At that time, there was a train that went up from Port Limon up to San Jose. They don't have it anymore. But that was quite a train ride. You got to see all the banana plantations, and we stopped at all the little towns along the way, and the people would bring chickens, all kinds of produce and farm animals up to San Jose to be sold up there. And we had a great time up in San Jose. The next thing that I remember, we got orders, say, I think it was early December of 1944, that I told you before. We came back to Charleston, South Carolina. At that time, the scuttlebutt was that they were fitting out the destroyer for the invasion of France. Well, so we had to live in the barracks, and we had to report on the ship and do minor things along with the shipyard workers. And then come Christmas Day of 1944, we had the best Christmas meal you could ever have in the chow hall at Charleston, South Carolina. Oh man, they gave us cigars, they gave us candy along with the meal. It was just fabulous. That evening it started to rain, and I was on gangway watch that evening, and somewhere around 7, 8 o'clock, here comes a bunch of guys marching down the pier, and we're wondering, what the heck is this? They were the survivors of the Bory, a destroyer just like ours, that was in a hunter-killer group with a carrier, and off the Azores, they surfaced a German submarine, and in trying to sink it, they rammed it. But when they rammed it, somehow the submarine went down and the waves went up, and they ended up on top of the submarine. So they're all shooting at each other with small arms. And the submarine did go down underwater, so they thought they sunk it. And the Bory got so damaged that they all went overboard, and planes from that carrier sunk their ship, the Bory. So there was 28 of them that were killed, and so their crew took over our ship, and the next day I'm on the train again, going south.
So let me stop for
Sure.
one quick second here. What was the name of the four-stack destroyer you served aboard?
J. Fred Talbot. He was a representative from Maryland.
And what had your jobs been like when you were aboard the Leonard Wood? What were your duties? And then when you were aboard the Talbot, what were your duties?
I was a seaman on both of them. I didn't get my rate until I was on the next ship,
On the third one?
the third one.
Well, what was daily life like for a seaman aboard an attack transport and then aboard a destroyer?
Sweepers, man your brooms, clean sweep down fore and aft. It was just regular, everyday housekeeping, only you're aboard ship.
Where was your wash station?
Okay, my general quarter station was on a K-gun. K-gun was the one that fired off the depth charges. The ones that rolled off the rolls went right straight down, and the K-gun shot them off to the sides. And actually, they were originally built on the destroyer because right above us was a 4-inch 50, and when they fired that off right above your head, you put a couple of inches between your feet and the deck, and at that time we had no protection, and also they didn't tell you when they were going to fire these things off, so yeah, that was something else.
There's a lot of guys these days with hearing problems, huh?
Yes, we do.
Did y'all ever have to fire your K guns on enemy contacts?
No. Combat was not in my part of the U.S. Navy. No.
What about in training?
You mean back in Boot.
Aboard ship,
Aboard
when
ship.
y'all would do
Oh,
submarine
yes,
drills,
we
you know,
did fire. We did fire them off in training. It was. Uh, I don't think it was ever because we knew or thought there was a submarine. But you're right, in training, and we were on fantail natural, and if they set one off to go off at 25 feet, it would raise the ship considerably off the, so that was always nice. But and then they'd fire that 450 in practice. But it was never in combat, no. Not the,
You mentioned the crew of the destroyer being more like a family. How did you feel when you got orders to leave it?
it wasn't, yeah, I was leaving some friends that I had made very good buddies with, there's no doubt about that. And actually, we did go to 4 reunions of that ship, my wife and I, and met with them again. And can I tell you a little story of getting back to this? Destroyer. Well, one of the reunions, I think it was in Charleston, South Carolina. One of the guys that got real friendly with was a fireman, worked down below decks, you know. And at that time, I was living in Florida, my wife and I. And his name was Hamilton Gregory. And when I got sent to Miami, he got sent to Maine to get a new destroyer, brand new destroyer. And it was sunk on D-Day. And now I'm back in Florida, and I'm watching the news on the History Channel one day, and it said tonight at 10 o'clock, we're going to show history detectives, underwater history detectives, about a sinking of a brand new destroyer in D-Day. So my wife and I always went to bed at 10 o'clock. So I said, oh my gosh, we'll go ahead and watch it. So they started the program, and who are they interviewing but Hamilton Gregory, my buddy. And he says, I'm Hamilton Gregory, and I used to be on the J. Fred Talbot, and I was sent up to Maine to get this brand new destroyer. It was like going from a carrier to a battleship compared to the old four-piper that it was on. And then they go into the story about the sinking, and he's a survivor, and he says, the only reason I survived, I was down below that, just before that, and I had to go to the bathroom. So he went up above, went to the bathroom, and that's when his ship was sunk. And I guess they still haven't figured out what sunk it, a mine or in Germany at that time had a smart bomb that would be directed from an airplane. Did you know that? You do that, okay? Because another buddy of mine that lived here, just above me here, was on the cruiser Savannah during the invasion of Sicily, and his Savannah was hit by one of those smart bombs too. So, and getting back to Hamilton, uh, just before that, he had been to our house in Florida to visit us because he was going around. He was retired. He was going around to all the members of the J. Fred Talbot and visiting them. And so after I saw the show, I sat down and wrote him a letter. The letter is here. I won't touch it for you right now. Came back to me. Written non-deliverable. He died in the meantime. So then I wrote to the president of our retirement from the J. Fred Talbot. Hey, that letter came back to me too. He died. Anyhow, I have that DVD of the sinking of the Meredith. If you want it, you could take it with you. And I'd like to have it back, but you can.
Yeah, ordinarily stuff like that we have access to.
You have access to it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, let's get back to you. What were your living accommodations aboard the Talbot like?
Well, you know, they talked about submarines being quarters were tight. On the destroyer, they were pretty tight too. When it, our bunks were, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4 beside you. And when chow time came, they lowered the table in between the chow. There was no special place to eat. That's where you ate, right there too. But being the good sailor that I was, I didn't mind it at all. I'll tell you, I just loved going to sea for some reason.
And 18, 19, 20-year-old kids can usually adapt to just about anything.
That's right, yeah. I adopted, although I was a Chicago born and raised city boy, the Navy was okay.
When what about your watch rotation? Do you remember what your watch duties were?
Well, most of them were lookout watches, glaring through the binoculars, trying to find something on the horizon. Never found anything, but you had to keep looking. Outside of that, your job was chipping paint and painting, you know. I remember one time I was painting the side of the bulk house, and I'm painting with the paintbrush up and down, and the officer come along, and boy, oh boy, I got chewed out. You don't go up and down, you go sideways. Something to do about the ship was, you could see it from afar better if the paint was up and down. No way, you had to do it sideways. You know. Okay. So I learned a lesson.
What were the guys in your division? Were you part of the deck force?
Yes, I was. I was a deck ape.
Tell me about the guys that you served with. Did you get closer to any one or two in particular? Were there any that you didn't get along with?
I got along with everybody, but I was, yeah, George Ferroni, he was on the destroyer with me. I was very, very close with. I'm just sorry we never, when we got busted up there in Charleston, it was so fast and furious that I don't know what happened to him. He never came to any of the reunions, so
You just lost contact?
I completely lost contact with him. The only other guy was the coxswain, who was the lowest rate of the bosun's mate, but he was the boss of the deck apes, and he was very good to us. And matter of fact, I think when that officer let me have it a little bit, he said, "You got to remember, these guys didn't join the Navy to be painting ships, so you got to be a little easy on them." And he was very easy on us, no doubt. Anyhow, now after an hour, we're getting back to when I'm leaving the destroyer, and I'm on the train to Miami Beach. Miami, I'm sorry, not Miami Beach, Miami, which had turned into SCTC, Submarine Chaser Trading Center. And it was run by an admiral that had been on a cruiser that had been in the Atlantic, and he had seen so many sinkings by German submarines. He was so mad at the Germans that he was going to teach, and I mean teach, newly commissioned officers and nucleus crews how to get aboard a new ship and go chase submarines. And the school started every Monday morning. Well, in the meantime, yeah, so what they had done, they had taken over all the hotels in Miami, Everglades, Alcazar, all the hotels in Miami were barracks now for Navy personnel. And the pier, it was Pier 2. I have a picture here of the pier that started the training. So, but one day I had met my executive officer that I had got along so well with on the destroyer, and he had been sent down to Miami too also. And after talking, he says, "I think I can get you a pretty good job." So next day I'm sitting in class. I don't remember what class, but they called my name. "Get your seat bag and report to the PC 1193. The PC 1193 is one of 4 school ships that were attached to the SCTC. So, and what we did was take out newly commissioned officers for their first trip out to sea, and nucleus crews that they were getting together to be put on ships. So 8:30 every morning we went out to sea. By 4 o'clock we're heading back to port. So that was my service for 2 years, all of 44 and all of 45.
We're aboard PC 1193.
Of course, 1193.
That's good duty.
I'm telling you, I didn't ask for all these goodies, but I got them. You know, how lucky I have to say I'm the luckiest draftee in the Navy.
What were your duties aboard the 1193?
Well,